by Bourke Sports, our very generous sponsors. You can get all the gear you need for the upcoming winter season from www.bourkesports.ie or contact norma.clancy@bourkesports.ie. So anyone getting into county finals now, we're heading for the provincial championships, right? And you need to look the part. It's half the battle, Dave. You've always said it. It's very important.
I'm telling you, as we always do every week with our tops, as you said, they're very generous sponsors. But the biggest thing that we took over the weekend is your predictions aren't the best. There's a long list of losers, we'll call them, that we just didn't get right.
Yeah.
We've St. Vincent's in Dublin, St. Martin's, Wexford, we've Burgess.
Yeah.
More and more. Drummy keep going.
Yeah. De La Salle
as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Look. You have to explain yourself.
Wasn't a great weekend for the predictions, though. Vincent came with tight and they just shipped a heap of scores in the last couple of minutes. I think Martin's just never, Oulart were in complete control of that game for the whole game. Watched it on Saturday evening. It wasn't a contest at all. I was really disappointed in Martin's, but it's not taken away from the Oulart performance. They played to their strengths. They isolated Ursula Jacob inside. She cut loose. And Acorn played really, really well for them as well. Burgess got beaten because we all saw the clip of Caught swapping to Hurley, which is just phenomenal, unbelievable. Had to educate a few bios as well, if we were calling for freeze out and stuff like that.
Even them lads, it was a broken Hurley. It's a broken Hurley. No dropping.
Yeah, surely you're no dropping.
No,
you know, awful harsh. There's a few people saying that she didn't score then afterwards either. Which, look, that's a fair point. In fairness, so Caught. Do better.
Up your game, please.
Yeah, but I suppose what it did show is if you do have highlights clips out there, 220,000 people watch that off through our Twitter page. So if you put the clips out there and they're of enough quality, that was an unusual one. But if they are high enough quality, people will watch it. So I suppose it's a bigger picture there. But yeah, not the greatest weekend now for predictions. So we might maybe leave that to somebody else in the future. Might have to try and recruit someone.
Don't worry, I'll take over the mental now.
You can take over. You can do this week. That'd be perfect. I'll let you call this week. That suits me fine. So, but look, who have we got on this week, Davey? Very special guest, I think.
Big time. Really special guest. A real supporter of our page, Women's Hurling page. A trailblazer in women's sports, in sports media, and RT's Jacqui Hurley. We'll get her straight in. Straight in, Davey. That's the job. Jacqui, you're very welcome. We've given you a great introduction there before you joined us, so just don't show us up a bit now because we've been getting away with it, but now that we have an actual professional on the pod, try not to be too slick. Just make a few mistakes here and there and we'll be all right.
Jeez, you just don't show me up and we'll all be happy then, yeah.
Deal, that's grand. That certainly won't happen anyway. But look, Jacqui, I suppose you were a camogie player growing up, high-level basketball player as well, so you're immersed in sport. Just curious as to where the interest in journalism came from. Was it something you always wanted to do, or was some of it based on your own experiences as a female athlete?
Actually, a bit of both. It kind of, when I was a kid, my mum and dad said I was always walking around holding the TV in front of them going, and the news this evening is whatever, So I guess I was always kind of interested in the media. But for me, it kind of was like I was either going to be a PE teacher or I wanted to be involved in sport. It was always going to be something in sport. And then the journalism appealed to me because it was the idea of going to matches. After I stopped playing, I kind of just thought if I'm going to stop playing, maybe in my 20s, 30s, just to have something to keep doing for the rest of my life, that I'd be immersed in sports. So that's where it came from. And it's the best decision I ever made, really was, because, you get every side of it now. I know sometimes it can be challenging when you're trying to cover sport, but actually even just the opportunity to be able to get there, it's an enormous privilege.
Especially in these times as well, Jacqui, that you're probably the only one of 10 people there at games. That's an extra bit of a bonus, but again, we won't get into that too much.
I know, but though, the idea though of getting to games, if you'd have told us this time last year that you'd be pining for a Junior A club match, that's the way it is now, lads, that's the reality. It's mad.
Lads volunteering to do umpire and everything.
100%.
Mad times.
Exactly. But again, if you told us 3 months ago, 4 months ago, I would have said no way. But again, we're lucky to even have things on TV and actually playing it. But I'll try and rewind the mind back to 2009, if you can, Jacqui. You became the first female presenter of the Sunday Sport. I suppose, how did you feel about that? Like, did you feel the pressure of taking over the reins, like, especially of such an iconic show?
Do you know, I didn't until journalists started ringing me and were like, are you under pressure? And then I was like, oh shit, maybe I am under pressure. Because a load of people rang me and said, you know, you're the first woman. And I was like, God, I actually didn't realize I was the first woman. What I did know was that I was the youngest, because I was only 25 at the time as well. And like, to me, that had been such an iconic show. The voices that had been on there, Micheál O'Hare, Micheál O'Hare, Jimmy McGee, you know, Des Cal, these kind of people that were legends in Irish sport were all there ahead of me. And you do, I suppose, in a lot of ways, I was just a bit more like, don't make a balls of this thing. You know, it's a huge opportunity. And then I remember in my first few weeks, we were pre-recording an intro, and Con Murphy, who used to present a show with me, he had written it. And you know the way sometimes when you're, you might say something slightly different than somebody else. And so we were just practicing it, and I went, oh shit, sorry, we'll just do that again. And the sound operator forgot to clear it off the top of the cart. And so then show goes out, I'm Jacqui Hurley, I'm Con Murphy, blah, blah, blah. Next thing, oh shit, sorry, I'll do that again. And next thing I heard it going out on the radio. And I was only in the show a wet week. I think it was like my third or fourth week. And I was there going, people are going to be like, get that stupid woman off the radio, you know. Yeah. So
like, imagine I felt the GA lads now, like, coming home on a Sunday afternoon as well.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Back in the day, like, ticked that a woman was presenting the show, and then she's swearing as well.
Yeah, she's swearing. And my children are in the car. What's she doing, you know? So, you know, thankfully people were able to see the bright side of it eventually. But like, I was under pressure after that. I genuinely thought, oh my God, this is the end of it. You're going to be getting the bullet here. Like, that's it. But I think eventually my bosses, like, they kind of pulled me in and were like, just remember, you know, that big red light there, that means you're on. Don't ever do that again, you know? So, so it was a steep learning curve. But listen, it was an amazing experience to get into the chair, and thankfully I'm still there a few years later.
That's it, 11 years later. And look, you have a new book out now as well, Girls Play 2. Look, I think we can pretty much guess what your motivation is for bringing that out, but just tell us a little bit about it and how that project came about.
So it's something, Adrian, that I'd wanted to do for ages, right? I think for me, just the women in sports space, it felt like it's really an underserved market. As you well know, you wouldn't be doing this if you didn't think it wasn't. And to me, it just felt like the children are the ones that we need to be talking to here, because like, for whatever's going on with the current generation, I think we all can accept that there's movements where we really want to make a change. But actually, I think if we're going to make a real positive change, that we need to be talking to the next generation. So to me, I kind of felt like a children's book was a simple way to do that. There aren't that many books about female sports stars, and we've never really had a kind of a compendium of stories. So I just thought, wouldn't it be class to have a fairy tale book that starts off, that's like, once upon a time there was a girl called Breach who, you know, picked up a hurley and was a rock star. You know, like, I just kind of thought, wouldn't it be amazing for young girls and boys to read these kind of stories? So I was kicking it around for a while, and then last year, just with 20 by 20, they were looking for people to make pledges. And I kind of thought, rather than me pledging to go to more matches and try to, you know, up the coverage, there are things I'm going to do anyway. I just felt like, why not challenge myself to do something that's going to take myself out of the comfort zone and do something that maybe might be a bit more tangible for young kids, that might actually make more of an impact. And then the book kind of just took off from there. And thankfully it seems to me like it was the right decision as well.
No, definitely. I suppose, look, for me, for like what we're trying to do, I suppose, is provide the female players with the same kind of platform and coverage as the male players. I think like part of that is changing the male perception as well. So like, it was very encouraging to see lots of photos on Twitter and things of actually young boys reading it. And like,
yeah,
I don't know, was that your, like, had you thought that was the kind of something that would be a knock-on effect of it, or had you aimed it at younger females initially, first of all?
To be honest, I have a 6-year-old son, and where this kind of started was, I was in the zoo last year and he had a couple of pals with him. He was 5 at the time, and he had this little friend called Ivana, who was a girl, and they were having this little row that all boys and girls have. Girls are better, boys are better, girls are better, boys are better. And then I heard Ivana saying to Luke, "You're right, Luke, boys are better." And I was like, "Jeez, why do you think boys are better, Ivana?" And she was like, "Because boys' matches are on the TV." And I was like, oh my God, like, how does a 7-year-old think this, you know? But like, I was there, like, Luke was like, "Oh, no, sure, my mom's going to be doing the World Cup there in the summer. Like, the women's matches are on TV. Don't you know this, you know?" And I was kind of going, Jesus, we really need to show both of them this, because like, if Luke doesn't see the same picture that Ivana sees, then there's no point in doing this. So I really wanted young boys to be a huge part of this. Like, you know, even Ivan, my colleague, like, she had a thing on social media last night with her son Shamey reading the stories, and like, it's really important that they're part of this. Because like I said, if, you know, like even just having you guys involved in this space, right? If this was camogie players doing this podcast, it's kind of, in a way, people would be saying, oh, it's self-serving because it's just more women talking about women. But I think the men are the ones who are crucial to this conversation, because I want dads to buy this book as well and, you know, be out and about with their daughters and get involved in their sport, because that's how this thing is going to evolve.
Yeah, and I suppose we had caught the Vans clip up there at the weekend, and some of the comments coming back definitely show that it's the younger generation we need to educate about camogie.
Big time.
Free
Big
out.
time.
No, it's too many steps. Like, no.
You're like, no, you can still do that.
Yeah. Going to stick up a clip of a hand pass goal, I think it would have just blown some minds altogether.
Lads, the hand pass goal, though, honestly, like I heard Sarah O'Donovan talking about this on the podcast a couple of weeks ago as well. And like, I mean, that woman benefited from it more than anybody else I know, by the way. But like, you know, these kind of things, this is where, like, if the game is going to evolve, that you do actually want eventually to have, like calling this podcast Women's Hurling. This is what we all want. We want it to just be the women's version of the game. So when we get to that level across the board, club, underage, everything, I think we'll be making huge progress.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you 100%, but we did score 6 hand pass goals at the weekend. So we might hold tough for
them myself now, in fairness.
Yeah, we might hold tough for a couple of weeks maybe on that front. But no, it's gone actually. I think our game on Sunday is going to be the last club game, or the next week, or the last camogie games that we played, the hand pass goal, because the new rules have been adopted for the Intercounty Championship. So yeah, we'll miss it, but we won't miss it.
But that was going to be one of my questions. Like, in your opinion, this was going to be later on down the line. The rules, do you want to keep them the camogie rules, or do you want to kind of combine the hurling rules into camogie? And you obviously just answered that there by that.
But you know, though, okay, things like the hand pass rule and the drop and the hurley, like I think that's a no-brainer, because, like, you know, it's just like let's play the same game. But I do think, though, the advantages of like having a 45 instead of a 65, like I do genuinely believe there are physical differences. Like I think we can all accept that a woman, you know, unless you're Gemma O'Connor, by the way, who can flake the ball the length of the pitch. But in general terms, I think if you are trying to make it a high-scoring game, like there's too many frees in camogie all the time, but you want them to be scoreable so that you're playing a high scoring game. So like, I do think that if there are particular advantages, like what they do in tennis, where it's, you know, a set less, I do think that if there's, same in golf, like women play off tees that are closer to the hole. I think if there's advantages like that can speed up the game, make it a better game, I'd be all for taking them. But I think generally in terms of the rules, I'd be all in favor of adapting the men's rules.
Big time. I suppose you kind of mentioned there that about your son not seeing the sport on TV, or his friend not seeing the sport on TV, but like RT kind of get a bit of grief a lot of the time about the coverage of women's sport, and I suppose camogie is particular into that, and it kind of gets left behind to a certain degree. In your own professional opinion, do you think there would be an audience for more camogie content on RT?
Yeah, definitely I do. And like, listen, we have this conversation all the time, because I do think the picture is changing. Like now that we've started doing quarterfinals, semi-finals, I don't see why we don't just do the whole championship. Like, to me, I think you're in or you're out, you know. So I think just in any tournament, if you jump in at the semi-final stage, there's no context, you know. And like, even for us, like if you think trying to paint the picture when you're trying to do the TV, you want your panelists to come in and be able to have analysis to actually show people. Because if you're coming on 15 minutes before throw in and you're showing a few warm-ups, people are not knowing that Niamh Kilkenny is one of the best hurlers in the country. You need to be able to pull out a few bits from the championship and show, here's what she did in the early rounds, and then do that. Yeah. So I think building the audience is definitely what we should be doing. Some of it is down to just schedule, like, because I mean, it's going to be bananas this year in particular. I think just trying to get into the windows with football, rugby, soccer, camogie, ladies football, like it's just going to be very challenging for everybody in the environment. But I think generally speaking, going forward, that I think RTE would love to be doing more camogie if we could make the schedule allow it. I definitely think there's a will there. It's just trying to make sure that there's a way as well of doing it, because like there's no doubt the audience is there as well. Like if you look at the TV audience pictures from the last couple of years, like the attendance is up over 100%. And I'm not just talking about the people there, I'm talking about the TV figures. Like they're through the roof. Like I think there was like over 350,000 people watched it last year, which is like a massive audience share. So people definitely like the product. I think we just need to see more of it.
Yeah, definitely. Like I suppose if the fewer games that are on television, the more pressure there is on the product. Dave, you've talked about that before, Dave. Like, it has to be the product. Like, if the first time you turned in to watch camogie was last year's All-Ireland final 2019, like, you definitely tune in again. Whereas if it was the previous year's final, you probably wouldn't.
But sure, that Cork Kilkenny final was like a free fest, you know. Like, even my mum and dad watched that, and like, they're big camogie people, and they were like, God, that was a terrible final. I mean, the players themselves would have said that. Like, if you talk to any of the players, the worst thing that they feel is when they have everybody on their shoulders, you know, that, like, you know, that the weight of it all, of the whole game is on them. Like, the ladies football final last year was atrocious. Now, Dublin are one of the best ladies football teams out there, but that game between them and Galway was horrendous. And the first thing that a couple of players said to me in the weeks after was, oh God, you know, did anybody watch it on TV? Did everybody think it was terrible? Like, they were worried about that. And it's the same in the camogie. You want it to be this free-flowing game that everybody loves watching. No,
that's it. And there's plenty of terrible men's games, but like, I suppose you're only a week away from the next one, and if that's a great game, then the rest of it's forgotten. You know, I suppose ultimately, Jacqui, look, Joe, we can be naive here sometimes, Joe, and people like Joe. We all work in a commercial world outside of what we do here, I suppose. But like, is it fair to say that like it would have to be a commercially driven decision for RTÉ to make, as opposed to, like, I suppose maybe some people might see it as an obligation as the national broadcaster, like, but like, there is huge commercial focus, I suppose, on any of these decisions as well. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. And to be honest, like, I mean, doing an OB costs an awful lot of money. Like, you're talking kind of 30 to 50 grand every time you stick, you know, a multiple camera shoot on any of those. And there's also trying to get the grounds for the Camogie Association, because if you're going to play a game in the Rag, I'm sure we've all been down there in our day, you can't send a full OB down there, you know. So you need to be able to say, okay, look, this game is going to be at a county grounds. It's going to be before the men's game. We can play the full OB, so we can get, you know, that's only one costing, and we're getting 2 to 3 games out of it. That's why we're getting a lot more double headers now, because there's a cost effect in it. I mean, I think commercially there's definitely a will in terms of the Women in Sport fund is definitely there, but I think for RTÉ they have to weigh that up in terms of, do we have the money to do all of that, or could we pull a sponsor on board? Like, Liberty had paid for some of that before, and I do think that that's a cost that all of them have to look at, because there's no way the Camogie Association can afford to pay for that either, because like, if you're going to pay for all your early rounds plus your quarterfinal, semi-final, final, it just wouldn't be financially viable for them either. So you are definitely talking about a commercial partner being involved, and then it just is about working out the logistics. But it's not as simple as, here's the money, now put it on TV. There's also like the schedulers in RTÉ who want to put on other stuff on a Saturday afternoon, you know, and like, the three of us are obviously heavily involved in sport. We want to be going to those commercial directors and saying, give me more sport, put this on the TV, we've got this. But equally, they're looking at it saying, well, we've got this slot for this TV show, and we've got to meet our requirements for the arts and media culture as well. So like, it's a big jigsaw that they're constantly trying to play.
I think the feeling, though, would be that the Camogie Association themselves probably haven't done enough to make this happen either. Like, ultimately, if we want to see change, does it kind of really have to come from them firstly? Yeah,
like, listen, it's far be it for me to criticize what they're doing in there, because I'm not in there, so I can't see it every day. But I did always feel that sometimes the ladies football are better at marketing themselves and going and getting their deal. Like, they have their own TV deal with TG Cahir, and it is on, I'd say they have a deal maybe that lasts 6 months of the year, really. In real terms, if you take, they've got a league package and they've got a championship package. Camogie is in the window for 2 months, really. And it's not enough. You know, like, I know ladies football is played by more counties, and I fully understand they have got a bigger playing population. But camogie, like, camogie is a more skillful game, right? So it should be able to be sold internationally as this amazing game that they're playing in Ireland, like the way people feel about hurling. Like, you know, if they put up one of your games in Clare and said, like, listen, you know, this game is going to be viewed all over the world, and like the hurling 11s or something like that, and they say, listen, Limerick and Dublin are playing in this yoke, and you know, it's being played in a baseball field. If they can sell that, camogie can be sold in the same way. But I just don't know if there's an appetite there right now to do that. And I do think that the Camogie Association has a role here, even in just trying to promote themselves a little bit better. Like, I would often find this on a Sunday afternoon where, like, the ladies' football games might be on, but we would get press releases from them very quickly to say, here's who scored the goals, here's what it means, here's the tables, whereas you just would not get the same level of information from camogie. And to be honest, we will read it out. If you get information, if you work on a radio program, and I'm not just talking about an RT, I'm talking about all over the country. If you work in local radio, newspaper, whatever it is, if somebody gives you information, you will write the story. But if you have to go and look for the information and it's a lot harder to find, then something else is going to occupy your attention, because it's a very fast moving thing. And like, there's only so many hours in the day you're trying to write something about soccer, rugby, Gaelic, whatever it is. If somebody makes it really easy for you, and I'm not trying to say this is lazy journalism or anything, because it's absolutely not. But I just do think that sometimes with the Camogie Association, my frustrations have been that they could have made things an awful lot easier on themselves by just doing those simple things.
Yeah, no, definitely. We were talking about it there at the start of the year. I think for the first couple of rounds of the National League, there was 3 or 4 counties who didn't have the results of the senior team.
That's
up
crazy.
On Twitter, you know. So, but look, I suppose obviously I'm not privy to the whatever deal the Camogie Association have done with Littlewoods and whatever, and with highlights packages and stuff like that. So from a commercial point of view, I don't know, but like a lot of the counties have really taken on board streaming live games, like, you know, like Clare, Wexford, the quality is really, really good. Kilkenny as well, the quality top class. Do you think with this kind of, I suppose, more exposure and I suppose technical ability to stream games, like, are we getting closer to some sort of magazine highlights show at some stage in the future, or is that completely pie in the sky altogether?
No, I think that's definitely a possibility. Like, I mean, I know, let's say this is obviously a separate conversation and a separate entity, but like, let's say with the GAA, like our boss would love to have a midweek GAA highlights show, but we can't because of rights, you know, because TG Carr have the midweek rights and Air have a rights package for midweek. But like, I know because we have so much GAA and you're trying to squeeze it all into the Sunday game and you're ending up doing 2 minutes on Louth against Longford, and that's pissing people off in that county. And I totally get that. So it'll be a similar situation with the Camogie. Obviously that's a separate rights package where you have to negotiate a highlights deal. But I definitely think, like, I'm talking a social media wrap. I've always loved something like this where, like, let's even say you put up that clip of Cardivan, like that, the quality of that is eminently watchable. So I think something like that, where you can just do a wraparound of social media, here's 5 or 6 different games, it's a 2-minute thing, it's a quick voiceover that basically says, here's what it means, contextualize it for people, and that's a really easy win. And I think social media would be a good one for that. I'd love to see the RTE player having like a mini series like that, even if you can't get into the TV schedule. But
oh, we didn't say RTE here. No, we're planning on buying the rights, Jacqui.
hey, well, let me do.
It's not all about RTE, you know.
Yeah, but like, you see, sometimes somebody does need to do that, because like, I think just the way media is being consumed now as well, it's not linear anymore. Like, RTE is still the big player in the market because that's a legacy thing. That's how it is. But I do think now, like, you know, I'm talking to you on my phone. Like, you know, I mean, this is the way communication is working now. I do think that people are much more willing to accept that the quality might be slightly lower in terms of the stream, you know, that the bandwidth isn't exactly the same as watching something in perfect quality on television. I think if you can see the game, you'll watch the game. Like, for instance, during the lockdown, right? I'm from a place in Cork called Ballinhassig. The lads were playing an intermediate championship, and like, obviously I'm not going home to watch those games, but I was now able to watch them on a live stream. And like, it's actually 2 lads had it set up on a mobile phone, and I watched it. Now, like, the quality isn't unbelievable and you can't really see, but like, I loved the crack of the lads just shouting, go on, hop it into him, you know, whatever it is. But it was brilliant, because it meant that I was able to watch it. And I do think people now will sacrifice that bit of quality to just get the information and get to see the game. So I definitely think there's a market there. So get in on that one, lads.
No, but there's simple things like Offaly. I'm coaching a team in Offaly at the moment, and like every Monday after championship in hurling football, they put out all the goals from the senior championship that weekend. So it could be 40 seconds or a minute, bang, out it goes. John Murphy, Ballinamere, goal 1, whatever. Shane Dooley, Tullamore, goal 2, and like, it gets massive views. Like, so, like, you know, even stuff like that, as basic as it is, you could do it in huddle in 20 minutes. You could have it out, not a bother. It's just, I suppose, of where you get the footage and collating it and stuff like that. But
that is the problem. you do need all of those county boards to play ball with that. And like, that is the thing. You need to make sure, like, sometimes with it, it's just training people, because like there's always a willing person. Like, you know that, you know, when you're involved in a county setup or, you know, with a local club, there's always somebody who would be like, give me a job, I'll happily throw up the camera or whatever. But it's just about training them and making sure that all the PROs are across that information, because any of the PROs that I've ever come across are always so willing and able to help you if they can.
And like, most of the games are recorded, you know, whether they're streamed or not. Like, the vast majority of counties are doing their video analysis and stuff now as well. It's just, as you say, it's kind of whether you could actually get in trouble for showing them or not is the thing. And whether we care or whether we get in trouble for it or not might come down to it as well. You'll see how it goes.
But that's the thing. Every game is recorded now. Like, no matter camogie, hurling, any championship game is basically recorded. It's just having the right people trained, as you said, Jacqui, to either take the clip and send it on, or send on the game that we'd be able to take a clip. And the social media aspect, I love the idea of something on the RT player, social media type round clip of doing your 30, 40 seconds. It's going straight to the point, showing the highlights, and make sure people know what stage the championship it's in. It's so simple to do. It's just a matter of having the right people to do it. Again, Jacqui, thanks very much for your time. I suppose if people want to get their hands on your book, where are we getting it?
So you can get it in Lidl, and you can get it in all your good bookstores now. And listen, hopefully people enjoy it. Like, the thing is, like, I suppose you just want to put something out there that has a nod to some of the sports stars. You hope that parents enjoy it as much as the kids. Like, one thing that I've loved is just parents reaching out to me and saying, I loved reading it with the gang, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And really, it's just, hopefully it adds to people's library collection at home, that their kids can now read about female sports stars as well as male sports stars. And by the way, I'd love if we had a book like this for little boys as well, like that had boys stars in it. Like, but it's in a lot of ways, I think it needed to go into the girls bracket first, because there wasn't one for them ever before. You can read about Lionel Messi if you really want to, but trying to find books about female sports stars are a bit harder. So that's why there one is first. But we'll get to the boys.
Is that a little sneak preview of your part 2 coming out?
That's it. Yeah, I'm a very busy. I have a really quiet 2021 coming up next year with Euros and an Olympics. So writing a book would be great crack, I'd say.
You'll have to put Davey into it. He's in everything else, so he watches everything else.
I'm sure he's playing
his
soccer
Instagram
now as well, I hear. So
Cork City.
Yeah.
John Sheridan's bringing him to Wigan. That's the last I heard. Wouldn't believe that. But listen, Jacqui, thanks very much. You know, if it ever doesn't work out for you in RTE, there's always a place here for you. So, you know, as a backup, or a promotion, whichever way you want to look at it, you know yourself.
I might be back to you for that. I might get the bullet after doing this interview.
Maybe, you should have seen the first draft of the questions we had. You got the handy ones. Listen, Jacqui, thanks very much. We'll talk to you again.
Lads, thanks a million. Cheers.
Thank you.
Right, Davey, that was brilliant. You can obviously see Jackie's a professional there. Makes us look very amateur. She's very slick. Very passionate about women's sport as well. So look, as she said there, get into Lidl, get into your bookshops, get that book for whether it's a boy or a girl you have in the house, nephews, nieces, sons, daughters. Great read, and be a lovely thing to have on a coffee table or that in the sitting room that people could pick up and have a look at as well.